here are my rankings for every single 2024 Formula 1 livery. So yes, we have already seen all 10 paint schemes that will be competing on the grid in the 2024 Formula 1 World Championship. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. In this video, we're going to be ranking every single one of them from the worst to the best. So guys, let's just dive right into this with the worst of the 10 liveries we've seen. For me, this is the Alpine A524. I don't really think that's too big of a surprise. There's been some controversy amidst some of the teams choosing to forego a lot of the paint on the car and instead just going for exposed carbon fiber for weight savings. Fortunately, that has left us with some pretty boring liveries, and the Alpine is the king of those problems. I mean, when it was first announced that BWT was going to be joining as a sponsor for Alpine, everyone was intrigued by the idea of a blue and pink livery. It had so much potential. It could have been so cool, but honestly, they've really failed to deliver with those two contrasting colors. They haven't really come up with anything that exciting. And now, sadly, this is probably the worst iteration of the Alpine and BWT partnership because the blue and pink is hardly even there. We're just left with a ton of exposed carbon fiber. The thing is really, really boring. Unfortunately, it has to be said. Now, the 9th best livery is the Haas VF24. Now, I don't really think this is such a bad livery, but it's sort of just an NPC kind of car, really. I mean, it's a Haas. That's pretty much all you can say about it. Nothing has really changed. There's nothing that's too striking. Nothing that really jumps out at you, unfortunately. But we will give them that they do have an identity to them. Everybody knows it's a Haas when they see it on the grid. Unfortunately, they're not really competing at the front very often. However, they do have some sort of an identity, which some teams can't really say that this year with all of the exposed carbon fiber bits. Now, yes, Haas is also guilty of leaving a lot of the car unpainted. However, I don't think it's really that bad of a livery, to be honest with you. But obviously, nothing has really changed on it, and that sort of unfortunately makes it a little bland, so it is landing in the number 9 spot on our livery ranking list. Number 8, I have the Steak Sour C44. I could have gone either way with this one. I could have had it higher up the list, but I'm putting it a little lower. Again, not really that bad of a livery. It's not terrific either. I do appreciate the fact that they went something totally different than they've had in previous seasons. The neon highlighter green is pretty interesting. Unfortunately, it's just, I don't know, there's something about the way it flows with the sort of black or dark exposed carbon fiber that's just a little strange looking, but I will give him that the neon green color choice itself is pretty damn cool. Now, of course, this is one livery that is kind of subject to change. We don't really know what the legal issues that are going on with Sauber and the other sponsorship kick. We're not really sure if they're actually going to be on the car for a lot of the races. There are some races where they physically cannot be there. So this livery could go through a lot of changes throughout the 2024 season, but as it stands right now, it's pretty good. It's okay, but that's pretty much where I'll leave it at. Number 7 is the McLaren MCL38. Now, they do have the papaya orange, which is great. I think everybody loves to see that. You want to talk about identities on the Formula 1 grid, McLaren and the papaya orange sticks out like a sore thumb in a good way. However, I think it was so much cooler when they had orange mixing with blue. It looked like old Gulf liveries. It was a great looking car the past couple of years from McLaren. Now they've sort of really ditched all of the blue that's on the car. They have also gone the route of the exposed carbon fiber, and that's just left us with a orange and carbon fiber mix, really. The coolest thing about the livery is still those Google Chrome wheel disc covers. I think that's one of the most clever branding options we've seen in Formula 1 in a long time. So kudos to Zach Brown and his team for sticking with the Google Chrome wheel discs. That is cool to see that stayed, but yeah, bring back the blue. The blue and the orange mix so well together. This one just seemed a little bit bland, unfortunately. Speaking of cool branding choices, next up we've got the Williams FW46. This is another team that's kind of guilty of leaving some parts with exposed carbon fiber, but unfortunately that's just the reality in the 2024 F1 season. That being said, these dark blue colors that Williams has chosen, I think they go really, really well on this generation of F1 car. But of course, that main talking point I want to point out with the clever sponsorship is the Duracell battery on the intake behind the driver's head. Glad to see that has stayed. I think that's one of the most clever and cool uses of a brand sponsorship in Formula 1. So mix that with the Google Chrome wheel discs. McLaren and Williams have some pretty cool branding options on their car. Also, another smaller detail that might have gone unnoticed on this new Williams livery that I quite enjoy is just that subtle little orange stripe they've added to this car. Reminds me of that dark blue Golf McLaren F1 GTR from back in the day. I think this looks really, really good, and yeah, I think that Williams FW46 is a pretty decent looking livery. In the 5 spot, I have the Red Bull RB20. I could have had this a lot higher. I think the only reason I don't is because it's literally not changed at all from last season, and to be honest, Red Bull hasn't really changed their livery much at all since they joined the grid back in the 2000s. They've got a theme, they've got a character, they've got an identity. It works, so it's just sort of the if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of saying with the new Red Bull RB20. Obviously, the thing that sticks out the most with the Red Bull, though, is the car itself because of those crazy zero pods they've chosen for the 2024 season, but we'll get into the technical aspect of that car in another video. For now, we're focusing on the livery, which is very distinctly Red Bull. Again, nothing has changed. It's still a pretty cool look. Red Bull is classic, one of the standout liveries in Formula 1 history. After that, at number 4, I've got the Aston Martin AMR24. Another one that hasn't really changed too much. However, if you want to talk about just color choices in general, I think this is the best one on the Formula 1 grid. That dark British racing green looks absolutely fantastic. I'm glad to see that has not gone anywhere. Now, when Aston Martin first joined back into Formula 1, they had this, everyone was very excited that it was going to be a green car in the grid. However, it was so dark, you almost couldn't really tell it was an Aston Martin from far away. You almost couldn't tell it was really green to begin with. So they since switched back to a lighter shade of green. This makes the car pop so well. It's just like an emerald jewel on the grid. It looks fantastic. I'm so happy to see they've stuck with this color choice. It's a great looking car. Into our podium positions, I've got the Ferrari SF24 in 3rd. How can you go wrong with a red Ferrari? You want to talk about teams that haven't really changed their livery in a very long time? Look no further than Ferrari. However, every year they do seem to make some subtle little changes. They try to add a little bit of color in some places, so we got to give them credit for that. Of course, they've had some strange ones, like adding that green Mission Winnow livery on the back of the car. That one kind of looked a little bit strange, to be honest. But in recent times, they've added little splashes of yellow to the car that look really, really nice. And in 2024, they've added small yellow and white stripes that I think really pop against the red paint job. So it's not just a flat red car, there's a little bit more to it. I think this is really, really nice. Also, shout out to the driver suits that Charles and Carlos are going to be wearing this season. They look fantastic. This is a great looking Ferrari, one of the better ones in recent times. Number 2, the Mercedes W15, aka the two-tone car. So of course, Mercedes have flip-flopped in recent years from the silver arrows to the black arrows. Both of these liveries look really, really cool, and honestly, it's like sort of 50-50 between the fans if you like the silver or the black better. Now, in this case, even Mercedes themselves couldn't decide between silver or black, so they just decided, why don't we just go with both? I don't know if you guys remember that old bar livery from back in the day that was split in half because they weren't allowed to paint their cars with different liveries. Well, W15 has found a much better way of combining two liveries, and it looks phenomenal. This car is going to look so good when it hits the track. And last but not least, I don't think this one comes as much of a surprise, Visa Cash App RB. This is what a racing car should look like. This is just a classic motorsport livery design. The white, red, and blue just mix so good together, and I can't wait to see this thing hit the track. And honestly, it's very reminiscent of classic Red Bull liveries, or classic Toro Rosso liveries in this case. Now, obviously, their new team name, Visa Cash App RB, doesn't sound very good, but the livery definitely more than makes up for that. Of course, we might be seeing a lot of this car on TV in 2024 because many people, including myself, believe they are the true dark horse of this upcoming season, and they are really going to give the fight to some of the bigger teams. And this livery is definitely going to look the best out of the bunch. So shout out to the team formerly known as Toro Rosso and AlphaTauri, now known as Visa Cash App RB. You're really bad at naming teams, but you're very good at designing liveries, so well done. This is the best 2024 F1 livery. So those are my official rankings of the 2024 Formula 1 liveries. Of course, this is entirely opinion-based. It does not represent everybody, only myself. You guys might be thinking some are good picks and some are bad picks. I want to hear what your guys' rankings are, though. Did I miss the mark on any of them? Drop those comments down below to let me know what you think of the 2024 F1 liveries. Give me your rankings. I would love to see them. And obviously, of course, as always, make sure you are subscribed and like this video for more F1 content. See you next time on Racing Direct.